I'm a TDSB educator. I teach grade 7 this year at middle school in Toronto, near Jane and Wilson area. I am doing my PhD in education at York in the language teaching and culture department. I'm focusing on the idea of at risk and Black bodies and how emotional intelligence influences the success of Black youth in our schools, and how community can inform curriculum and policy and what that looks like. Um, I am a co founder and director of education at Generation Chosen, which is a nonprofit organization that tries to interrupt intergenerational cycles of trauma through instilling emotional intelligence skills into our young future leaders. Because there's so many things that, I mean, from our experiences, I'm sure you have your own share of experiences that try to derail youth and make youth feel like they're worthless. And if we can affirm ourselves from the inside and work that confidence outward, then we can lead better lives for one another, and we can build each other up as we do those brave movements forward. Yeah, so that's pretty much me. The most important part. I'm a daddy to
Of
Rain,
course, you can't forget that.
Rain, and soon to be husband to Rianne Campbell. I almost called her Brown, but yes.
Well, she already is, right? She's already wifey, so you might as well. Wow, thanks for sharing, Dwayne. There's a lot on your plate. Sound like you wear multiple hats. So, definitely an educator, a scholar, and a social change maker, as well as the family man. So, clearly, you must be passionate about everything you do. Otherwise, you wouldn't be doing all of it. So, I'm just going to ask a generic question: why do you do what you do?
It sounds like a generic question, but it's such a pointed question because everyone at some point in their lives, they want to have something that is perfectly in line with their passion. Um, no one wants to do a job that they don't like, because that becomes very draining. That becomes very, I mean, all we have is our time. So I got into education because education is hope. There's this proverb that I learned in my master's program, Tato Kela Sedi. It's a Sesotho proverb from South Africa. And it basically means education is light. Now, hearing that, it was profound to me because I believe, I mean, if you think of anyone, everyone has to go through education, whether it's formal education, informal education, traditional, non-traditional. We all are sentient beings. We're learning all the time. So I'm a science guy. Like, I love science. So to compare something to light, like the sun provides everything that we have here. So it was a profound statement. Without the sun, we'll have no life on Earth. So pinpointing education and identifying it as light, it's also translated as hope. I know that there's a cycle of hopelessness inside of our communities. Um, certain ideas have been inculcated into us and passed on throughout generations that have caused us to remain in that cycle of hopelessness and helplessness. So I got into what I'm in to break that cycle, to show youth that, yo, look at me. I came from the community. I grew up in Jane Finch, very diverse community, lots of brilliance, lots of languages, lots of relationship, lots of skills. It's an amazing community, but then there's the stigma, and then there's the anti-Black racism that has gone into the development of certain policies that influence the way people can navigate and go about their lives. There's a huge immigrant population there. Um, and people are trying to figure out the system because they're new to the country, and there's not much help from the government. There's not much hands-on help from the government. Most of the projects and the things that help the community members have been built from within the community. So people that have decided to spearhead certain initiatives because they saw a dearth of certain services, etc. So that's why I got into education, because I know that through education, I can provide hope to someone else. I can provide inspiration. I can, with each day, each lesson, create culture, new understandings. I can unlock someone's passion with my words, and I might not even know. And they'll come back years. I mean, I've had people email me saying, "Yo, Mr. Brown, I just finished university, my first cohort." So there was a student who was disengaged, and they came back, and they're like, "Yo, Mr. Brown, remember you said, don't worry about the girls, because my brother told me this. My older brother told me, yo, don't worry about the girls. Focus on school, focus on ball." But that person wasn't a basketball player. But anyways, so said, "Yo, you remember you told me not to focus on girls?" So I did that throughout university. And my GPA was the best in my class, you know? I was a runner-up for valedictorian. I wasn't the valedictorian, but, you know? So it's just inspirational to hear that feedback after years. And then the other thing that I do what I do for is to have reform in the community. We need to have voice. We need to, and being who I am, I can be that filter. I can be a liaison until we have more people from the community speaking up, speaking on issues. I mean, we have so many people, and I'm just one. But the representation really does matter. As taboo as that sounds, having different people in different places that look like you, sound like you, could code switch and articulate ideas without having to explain to them the intricacies of certain things, experiences, it really matters. Sorry for that long-winded answer.
Do you know what? I love those long-winded answers because I like to dissect and analyze everything I was saying. So I'm making notes. Don't worry. There's going to be a conversation about this. I love that. So first of all, I love the proverb that you mentioned. And it actually reminded me of something that I use for visionaries, right? So those that know the way, show the way. Right, and be the example, and that's what I'm going to take in summary from that. And with the layers that you mentioned, us as black men are usually multifaceted. We have sometimes a professional facade or face or side to us that we have to put on just to succeed in, whether it's our career path or the educational path. We need to have, what's deemed acceptable in those areas. And then we have to stay true to our community, our upbringing. We've been there, we've done that, we've grown up in some of the most impoverished areas. So it's hard to navigate and play those intricacies with those different audiences. So I love that answer. Thanks for sharing. But actually, one thing I'd like to pull out as well is it seemed like an easy question of why, but you found your why quite early on, which is quite interesting. For some, it takes all the way to middle age, if not later, to find out their purpose of why they're here. So, has there been any sort of one person, or even couple of people, or might not be a person, a book that has influenced the most and helped you to find that why?
Absolutely. So, my why happened in 2006. I was 15. Um, my, let's just say my older brother was one of the biggest influences for me. He was charismatic, he was smart, extremely athletic, had scholarships to the States for basketball, was heavily scouted, was a broke track and field high jump records in the city and across Ontario. He was just someone I wanted to be. So we would always have these chats, and we developed a really close bond where whenever he was buying something for himself, like if he bought a pair of shoes, he'd buy me a pair of shoes, and we'd match, So I developed a really close bond, and I just clung on to every word he said because it was like gold. And he told me, like I mentioned when I answered the last question, focus on basketball, focus on school, don't worry about girls because he saw that like I was very flirtatious, extremely flirtatious. But I learned that from him too. Um,
You
so
you were friendly.
I was friendly. Yeah, I was extremely
Yeah.
friendly. So in 2016, he was murdered, and that left uh, that that changed me forever. That gave me new passion, um, but the passion didn't come before a storm, so to say. So I was extremely angry. However, I did cling on to his words before he passed. So I told him I wanted to be a coach, and he's like, "Yeah, coaching is teaching, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Yo, you should get into teaching. You'd be a great teacher. But whatever you do, make sure you're the best." And then he was murdered, and those words, I felt like I was indebted to him to fulfill those words. So I just continued to coach over the summers, um, align myself with um, the right like mentors. So my basketball coach, I was always in the gym. I woke up at 5:30 every morning. I was in the gym by 6. Started school at 8:30. Like I was on this strict regimen where I was just developing my skills, and I was focused on basketball, which kept me out of trouble. And sometimes I'd stay in the gym for an hour and a half and then do some homework. Like it was just flexible like that. I liked waking up early, and it taught me discipline. So yes, I do have someone who influenced me. My big brother influenced um, the way that I do things. Um, my mom, seeing my mom work as hard. Oh my gosh, she that lady could make a penny turn into $100. I swear. Like she's so resourceful. She's
Mm-hmm.
so altruistic. Like I learned altruism from her. Um, like people used to come from the community into our house because my mom would always cook extra food, and no one would get turned away. You know, if it required her to just put on another pot and cook for people that are hungry, other people's kids in the neighborhood, she would do that. So my mom inspired me. She influenced me heavily. Um, and teaching is altruism. Like you're giving back. It's an act of giving back. Um, my dad, he was a hard worker, but I also learned from his mistakes because he was a Rolling Stone, and really, he really, um, he really adopted that cliche Jamaican man mentality where yo, I'm the man, I can do what I want, and go out and have sex with a lot of women and it not be a thing and come back to my woman, like that type of thing. And he had some children out of the marriage. Um, and from those mistakes, I realized the impact it had on my mom and dad's relationship for a long time in our family. And I also promised myself that I wouldn't be that like that. I wouldn't be one to have children from different women. I want to do it the right way, you know? Um, it's a lot less complicated that way too. So yeah, I learned from my dad's mistakes, and then more recently, my best friend Joseph, Dr. Smith, he's through some of the most difficult times in my life. He was always there. He in many ways took the role of my brother. He filled that gap in my heart, in my development psychologically, mentally, in cultivating my motivation and affirming my existence. You don't have a friend that affirms your existence, you need some new friends. Because your friends, they say your friends will tell you who you are. Show me your friends, I'll show you who you are. So um, I don't have many friends. I consider you a friend, Chris. I
I
consider
hope you do. Yeah, yeah.
but yeah, your friends should always be able to enrich you and enhance um, your vision, you know, and help to build that um, what's the word I want to use? Accountability for the steps towards your vision. And of course, my wife, I mean, fiance, Rihanna.
Of
Like
course.
she, when I come home from war, because many days it feels like war when I go out in the world, um, for many reasons, as many of you know, and as many of you will experience, the anti-black racism in our society, it wears us down, it weathers us. Always having to be that mouthpiece once you get to a certain level in your career to speak on behalf of your people and speak on behalf of black men and whatnot. Um, this especially for me happens in the academic world where people ask me where I might be the only black male or black cis male in the room. Um, and the burden is on me to represent. And sometimes I have to be extremely strategic in the way I represent because I know on the other end of 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 my words, there's already a tension, there's already a bias that's already been defined for me of what I am supposed to be and what I'm supposed to represent. So your words are often not enough, and it's like you're trying to prove yourself in different spaces. But just to bring it back to who's influenced me the most, those are some of the main people: my brother, my mom, my dad, my best friend, and and Rianne, my wife. And of course, Rain is transforming me in so many ways right now. She is fatherhood right now. I can only describe it as groundbreaking because everything I used to stand on, Rain has caused me to pick those pieces up and analyze them to create new ground. And in many ways, it's transformative because I'm now responsible. I'm the first representation Rain has of manhood, of love, of, you know? So I have to be very strategic in what I display and do around her so that she can can not only see herself in the ways that she gives love and interacts with people and um, demonstrates or builds relationships, but also so that she can be a confident person as she navigates the world. So, um, did I answer the question? Just want to
You
make
went
sure.
above and beyond. There's so many things. Again, I'm here scribbling, trying to keep up with everything. And as usual, I'm going to analyze it and take out. So it's so interesting that, and it's true in real life, right? It doesn't. It's not just one person. It's not just one thing. It's usually a culmination of many things that help to find your why, help to find or drive your passion. So in your case, your influence were those closest to you. So it wasn't just one person, it was a community that had so much of an influence on you. And what was great in your case, it was more or less those in your family unit, right?
Yeah.
As opposed to
And
someone
I do
external.
have some external people, like my basketball coach. There were times where I didn't want to go home because I was commuting from Brampton to come to school because I didn't want to leave the community. I Brampton, like there was nothing. The blocks were so big. I waited so long for buses. I was like, I don't want anything to do with this place. I just slept there, but most of my life was still in Toronto. And when my sister moved out of Ardwick to move to Mount Olive, which is Kipling and Finch, I was like, yo, let me live with you. And my sister, oh, I forgot my sister. She influenced me as well. She was like my mom. And one more person, Mr. Carey, my grade 11 not science, philosophy teacher. Oh my gosh, when he introduced me to philosophy, he changed my world forever. And yeah, I think I'm gonna mention more about that. Yeah, maybe later.
Okay, you're going to hold back that, Jim. That's fine. That's fine. So yeah, so you clearly had a lot of it, which was great. So you had some external too, and you touched on how you were able to transform some painful experience to drive your passion and even your footsteps into your current trajectory or career path. And one other thing I want to pull out from there. um, it was suggested that you go down the path of coaching, and you didn't literally take that as that means I need to be a basketball coach as such, but you translated that to say, yes, I can be a coach within a teaching profession. So I know a lot of mentees that I've had the pleasure of speaking with and working with fell into that trap where it's been suggested that, you're good at helping people, so that means you need to be a doctor. You're good at maths, so that means you need to be an accountant. No, you can translate or transfer some of those suggestions or skills to a myriad of different professional endeavors. So that's interesting and good to see how it materialized in real life. So talking about that trajectory into life and your current career path, how did you sort of land to where you are? So I know that you said you're in teaching. How did you get there? And you're also in academia as well. So what kind of drove you to those paths?
So, so yeah, I have a career right now in teaching. I actually got my first contract this year. Um, Teacher and as an academic, and one other thing is as a community activist in many regards. So my first role as the teacher, that came quite easily because I started coaching and I really enjoyed coaching. And then through my undergrad, I did kinesiology, and that has a lot of teaching as well. And I tutored during my undergrad. Um, my basketball coach advised me to apply for Teachers College um, in my first year. So I applied, got in, um, and that was that. I was in my fifth year, and during my fifth year, I decided to apply to the emergency supply list, which is a temporary list for people that don't necessarily have their OCT, certified, aren't an Ontario certified teacher. And I was teaching, and I was in high schools that a lot of teachers were like, "Oh, be careful, those students won't respect you." And I'm not even going to go into those experiences, but the staff rooms are so fascinating, especially when people look at you as a student. Because I mean, I was only, what, 21 when I was teaching these students that were 3, 4 years younger than me. And there was a lot of jealousy because teachers would walk by my class or stand by the doorway and watch me do my thing. And the amount of command, the amount of respect that the students would demonstrate, they wouldn't demonstrate to them. So that for me was a sign that, yo, I'm in the right place. Let me keep doing my thing and work on my skill set, diversify the assets in my tool belt so that I can deliver exactly what these students need when the time comes. So, yeah, the path to teaching was basically me accepting different teaching assignments, LTOs. As soon as I got my OCT, principal at Pummel Park, that was my first official school where I had an LTO. They're like, I want to hire you. I want to hire you. She left to go to another school, but I got another LTO there, and the principals kept keeping me. They offered me a contract, but I didn't want to take the contract at the time because I was working on my master's, and that was time consuming. And then soon after, I started working on my PhD. So right now was the perfect time to accept the contract. And then with regards to academia, I was a part of this program called ACE, which is the Advanced Credit Experience in grade 11, where students in 3 schools at the time, I believe it was Jeffries, Emory, and Cardinal McGuigan, all schools along the Finch strip, in near Jane and Finch. they brought students from these schools, which were considered at-risk schools, and they immersed them into the university culture where they had an opportunity to get university credits at the same time while learning skills for the future. So in that program, I got a really good mark, and we got some money. I got like $4,000 towards my post-secondary education. Unfortunately, that program is at risk right now, and they need funding. But that program was transformative. It allowed me to see that, yo, I can do this academic stuff. I'm in grade 11 right now, and I'm beating all these people in a course that I had. It was political science. I didn't know anything about political science. Went into that course and murdered it. I mean, maybe you should use a different word. And I did really well. I performed exceptionally. So that built my self-efficacy in my academic abilities. Because I mean, you're in high school, you're doing well, whatnot, but you never really know what you're capable of until you actually get into a different context. With I didn't even know about university. I didn't know the difference between university and college. I was just learning that stuff. So that really allowed me to see that, yo, I can do a lot more with my academic capacity. And then with Generation Chosen, that's my passion. You know, that's kind of like merging all my worlds in one, where I have the opportunity to teach, but I also have the opportunity to mobilize community. I have the opportunity to equip youth with skills that they're going to need for the future in every regard, every sphere of their lives. I have the opportunity to mentor and share my stories and love on youth and redefine masculinity and all these things. So, how did I land my current role? By keeping on the path, but also by ensuring that throughout everything, I was creative. You have to be creative, and and you have to you have to identify a skill within yourself that you can shape or build around, because a lot of people feel weird or awkward or out of place when they do things that people don't necessarily like or that makes them stand out. But standing out or being the outlier, that's perfectly fine. That is amazing because that means that you have something that other people don't have. So don't try to conform to the status quo. Don't try to be like everyone else, because there is a lot of wealth in your individuality, and that thing that sets you apart will make you marketable, self-marketable.
I like that. So be you. That's your X factor, and that makes the difference out of a crowd. So, and thanks for sharing again, Dwayne. The reason why I asked that is because, again, I don't want to say they're rosy-eyed or they're fresh, but when you're first starting out and saying that I want to be A, you think it's as simple as A, B, C, 1, 2, 3. But whenever I ask that question from people like you, it's clear that it's never a straightforward trajectory. It's usually a happenstance encounter at such and such a stage that led to this, that led to this, that led to this. Or even in your teaching career, for example, it wasn't like you just finished teachers college and landed a job. It was you managed to find placement at certain types of schools. You endured the environment, although it might not have been ideal, and it has materialized to the contract situation that you have now. So there are multiple.
And I forgot one of the main things. I forgot one of the main things. You have to plan. You have to know exactly where you want to go. These things you can't go blind. You can't try to. I'm gonna be a teacher, and then you just walk into work. You have to do your research. You have to put in the work. You have to figure out the paths. And mind you, there's not only one path to get to a goal or to get to whatever you identify as an end space for yourself. There's so many paths. You just pick one, and it doesn't even mean once you start that on that one path that you have to stay on that path. You can jump to another one. So that was one thing that I had to do throughout. I'm a planner, so I had to plan different trajectories. I'm wondering if I have my old map. Like I had a piece of white paper, and I would like say, "Oh, I want to do gerontology. I want to go to med school to be a heart surgeon. I want to be an educator." And then there would be like a small one. Oh, I want to do my master's, and then a line from the master's to question mark PhD. So like as you're going, and you can refine your little map, your little roadmap as many times as you want. Sorry to interject, but that was a huge part of the process.
No, I like that you're dropping a gem, and I'm a huge proponent, and the community already knows this, of vision boarding, right? So that's another form of planning, albeit at more a high level. But any sort of mastermind or web mapping that you choose to create is a form of planning. And it goes to the ideal, or links somewhat to the ideal of writing your vision and making it clear. There's a certain sense, I know you said you're a science guy, of what's the word? You've got your conscious mind and you've got your subconscious, right? So if something is visible to you, yes, you can concentrate on it, but if you, in the case of my vision board, for example, if you just continually look at it, there's the subconscious part of your mind that's working away. And it has a propensity to find opportunities that you're not necessarily looking for, connect the dots, and things somehow work themselves out. There's a bit of mystery to it still, but just go along with it. It works. And the key out of that is planning. Write things down, and it will definitely help you with your trajectory or your planning or future goals. I'm going to take that one step further. So now you had your plan, you've kind of walked through your plan, now you've landed where you have now. Is there one thing or one question that you would have asked earlier that would have made your life any easier?
In my household, like things that have to do with finances are so taboo. Or when I was growing up, everything like, okay, we're paying bills. Yeah, we know bills are getting paid, but how are you paying them? Like, what are some investments that you've done? What's life insurance? What's an RESP? You know, like all these things. I wish my family had the know to inform me on finances, to inform me, yo, when you get your OSAP, why don't you put some of that aside? Why don't you put that? I know it's a terrible, I mean, it's not terrible. It's a safe bet. Put it into a GIC. Why don't you invest into the stock market? Why don't you learn about ETFs? Why don't you put some money down so that when you graduate, you can buy a house? Like, I wish my family, I wish I asked, because I read Rich Dad Poor Dad in grade 10.
Well, that's a lot earlier than a lot of people, so good on you for that.
It was from my dad. No, it was from my big bro. My big bro had the book, and I stole it from his duffel bag, and I was just reading it. And he kept asking me, "Where's his book?" And I'm like, I don't know. Finished the book, returned it to his duffel bag, and yeah, I was just like learning about some of the stuff that rich people do to secure their riches, how they make money work for them, how they try to avoid the rat race, how they not try to avoid, they don't take part in the rat race. It was informative. I'm like, yo, how come they're having conversations like that regularly, like it's just natural, but in our families we're not. So yeah, one question that I wish I asked earlier is, how do I get my hands on assets? What are the steps? How do I minimize my liabilities? Yeah.
I second that. That book was transformational for me as well in terms of my mindset, and is foundational in how I plan going forward too. I wouldn't say in defense, but it's understandable looking at the prior generation. They just didn't have that that information available to them, right? So I think it's easiest to understand and in some ways forgive the lack of the download or sharing of that knowledge because they simply didn't have it. And it follows something that we said earlier: those that know the way show the way. So we know it. So that's why these forums like this exist, to just continue to pass that knowledge down as much as possible, not only to the generation after us, but even those around us, those are the same age that might not know the same thing. So that's
we
good.
also have to make it less taboo to talk about finances in our families, in our households. I mean, I don't know how it is or how it was for you growing up, but like talking about, yo, let's go to the grocery store. How about you price match with me, you know? Or like just simple stuff like that, you know?
Yeah.
I never had the luxury of that.
Me either. I'd say that maybe that could be attributed to mentality again. You know, we're the old school Caribbean household. We're the parents, you got a child, kind of thing. Finance is a parent thing, and as a child, you do your thing. But as we've come to now learn ourselves, it's something that needs to be discussed very early on, because that can affect your whole life trajectory. It's simple as, what is a liability? Do not do that, because that will, completely change your life. Great.
Yeah. And the embarrassment from making mistakes.
Yeah.
Like financial mistakes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyways.
Well, and they say that the wisest people, they don't necessarily make their own mistakes. They learn from the mistakes of others. So even if we can be transparent enough to, or not just transparent enough, but brave enough to openly talk about some of the mistakes that we've made and share them with others, they can learn. They wouldn't have to necessarily go through the same pain we did, the same pitfalls we did, and they'd be able to start from even a higher stage than we did and exceed even beyond our wildest dreams. So, great. There was one other thing that you mentioned I'm going to pull out. And it's again connected to what you said earlier of being yourself, and that rolls into the next question here. What do you think your unique skills are, and how has that helped you in each of the different areas of your life that you've mentioned so far?
I think I'm very analytical, and I can pinpoint when something doesn't line up. But and that causes me to be very strategic with the decisions that I make. And because of that, I like editing. I like editing things. I like, because I see mistakes quickly. Um, this is a really good question, because all right. So yeah, it's a really good question. All of us all of us suffer from some form of imposter syndrome. And this question is difficult for me to answer, because I often tell myself that some of the skills that I have, I'm supposed to just have them. Like it's not special. You just have these skills because that's the way. Like it's just supposed to be like that. So I I I keeping that in mind, I guess revisiting the question, some skills that I have, I think I speak well. I think I express ideas well. I'm able to grapple with ideas and contort them and assess them. I believe that um, my interactions in person, I'm able to feel a room very quickly and assess some of the energy in a room.
You're high on the emotional intelligence scale.
I'm high on the emotional intelligence scale, yes. I'm great at giving advice, relationship advice. I'm an amazing listener. That's I think I'm gonna use that as my superpower. I'm an amazing listener. So
No,
and because
that makes sense. And actually, I was giving a talk earlier today, and it's funny that you mentioned that. Since you're such a great listener, that translates to you being a great communicator. Most of being a good communicator boils down to your ability to listen.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yes, I completely agree. Yeah. And I definitely see a direct correlation between my ability to listen and my ability to be successful. Um, yeah, yeah. I think I'll leave it at
Nice.
that.
And I wouldn't say any of them are common by any means. So they are definitely traits that I can see play a huge part in your success. And in terms of imposter syndrome, let me be the first to affirm you that you definitely have those skills. They aren't very much commonplace at all. And you're, again, in my opinion, expert or very high on the scale, as I'd like to say, in terms of proficiency for those skills. So definitely no imposter over here. Okay.
I'd say the same thing for you.
Yeah, I try. The mantra that I live my life by is every day in every way I'm getting better and better. So whatever facet of life, whether it be finances, whether it be communication, whether it be, I don't know, career, I'm always trying to improve. So as long as I'm doing better tomorrow than I'm doing today, I'm happy. Yeah.
Yes.
Leadership, and clearly with everything that you're doing, it's clear that you're a leader, not just at home, but clearly academics, clearly at school, being a teacher, and even in the community with Generation Chosen. So throughout, again, all of your blended experiences, what would you consider the most important or crucial leadership lesson that you've learned?
Like, leadership can teach you a lot because you're not only responsible for the way you lead and the like how you lead, but you're responsible for the diverse group of people that are either following you or on the same team as you. Um, and everyone comes with different skill sets. Everyone comes with different experiences. Everyone comes with different ways of analyzing and seeing the world, and all of that is beautiful. And everyone should be acknowledged and praised for their diversity. Um, and because of that, I believe that as a leader, you should be willing and able to take a back seat and to follow. So that is one of the biggest lessons I've learned from leadership, that when you can take the following role and allow everyone to have a kind of equal stake in what's going on, equal say, a democracy in some ways, an idea meritocracy, then that's when you allow people to be able to step into leadership as well. You allow people to be able to um, develop confidence and not believe that, hey, there's a decision that needs to be made. Hey, leader, what should we do? No, I have an idea based on the problem that we need to solve. What do you think about this? So, like, I think that's what we, that's what leaders need to. I mean, yeah, that's what leaders need to set as their default, because then there's not as much strain on the leader to make all these decisions, and the group shares accountability. So I think that's one of the biggest lessons I've learned from leadership, is that you have to be able to share that power so that other people can be brought up.
Spoken like a true leader with a high EQ. So very much a people first approach or people centric approach. And again, from my experience, I could share exactly the same thing, or would give such a similar answer. It's your ability to empower the people to either, bring or create an environment where they feel safest to bring great suggestions or allow their true self to come forward. So I wholeheartedly agree with that answer. Great answer. Okay, in terms of, not necessarily resources, here's an interesting question for you, though. If you could have dinner with anyone in the world, anyone dead or alive, who would it be and why?
That's a great question. Oh, geez. Um, okay. Maya Angelou. Maya Angelou. I'm a huge fan of, like, she's so skilled. She is just so remarkable with her ability to take an experience, analyze it, tease out the gems, reword and describe, and then deliver it to someone else to consume. Like, it's just food for me. Like, she has a way of seeing things in her experiences that is humbling. She is a storyteller. I admire her storytelling ability. I would love to have dinner with Maya Angelou. Next person would be Kobe. Rest in peace, Kobe. That mama mentality. I'm pretty sure I'd ask him to go play some ball after. Ask him to teach me the shimmy, turn around. But he he was the grit, the passion, the discipline, the, like, leadership, all these things. He he used basketball as a vehicle that really was instrumental to his worldview. And it's very artistic. The way you watch him play, the way you see him in practices, the things he says, like, basketball taught him life. And he used basketball as a tool to teach life to so many. And it's just so tragic that that art he taught to his daughter for it to live on, and his daughter passed with him. But hopefully, like, through all of the relationships that he had with other people, that he trained other people, the conversations he had with people, like, hopefully that leads to that mama mentality, the authentic mama mentality being passed on. Because, yo, it was impressive to see on the court, but as a human being navigating the world and making strategic decisions, even his investments, like, it was just, yeah, I'd love to talk to Kobe.
Yeah.
Have dinner with Kobe.
It's so unfortunate that his next phase in life got cut so short.
Yeah. That show,
Those
that
are,
was going to be incredible.
those are some two powerful people you just mentioned there.
And I want to say my big bro.
Of course.
I want to have dinner with my big bro.
Yeah.
Catch him up on everything that's been going on. I know he's here with me, you know. But just to actually speak to him and have him speak back. Because I speak to him when I'm feeling different ways, when I'm trying to grapple with different ideas, when I'm at different crossroads where there's tough decisions. And of course, I mean, not that I'm speaking to my bro like he's God, but yeah, I'd love to speak to my bro. And I am assuming all of these things are without considering God, right? Because I love to speak to God.
All right, you should be speaking to him on a daily basis and having dinner with him all the time.
That's part of my daily routine.
Yes, that's a good. Okay.
My daily routine is do something for God,
Yeah.
do something for self, do
Yeah.
something for everyone else. or the world.
Yeah.
But yeah, yeah. And then I know it was only supposed to be 3 people, but Barack Obama. I want to talk to that dude.
All right. You can come in for drinks later. That would be an interesting dinner party. I hope I'd get an invite to that. That does
Oh, for sure.
really. And what's interesting with that, they're all so diverse. So diverse, yet so powerful, and I'm sure that would be a great conversation. You can learn a lot from those people, right? Okay, a last, what we refer to as an anchor question for you. What does being a visionary mean to you?
Okay. So, being a visionary is boldly affirming yourself through your actions and visionary is a huge word. It's such a okay. Yeah. All right. How about this? Being a visionary, I'm trying to be simple. Boldly living in the now, but always having the future in mind.
I like that. I think I might steal that. Boldly living in the now, and while also keeping your eye on the future.
Yes.
Okay. I like that. And then, like I said, I'm stealing that shamelessly, but I'll give you credit for it. Let me write that down. I like that. So it speaks about, yes, being firmly planted and aware of what's happening currently, but also planning. I'm assuming that's what you mean by having your eye on the future, or also preparing for the future as well. So simple yet powerful. I love that. Dwayne, this has been a pleasure. Like I said, there have been so many gems dropped. I'm going to pull a lot of quote or sort of tidbits out of this, so be prepared for those posts, and that you'll be tagged in every one of them. But like I said, I really appreciate your time. I really appreciate your willingness and openness to always give back and help those in the community.
Thank you. Thank you for your time. Thank you for pouring your passion into this. Thank you for carrying future